Picture this, January 1965, the frozen mountain passes of the French Alps. A ruby-red Porsche, barely 4 months into production, slides through hairpin turns, alongside Ferraris, worth 3 times its price, and Jaguars that can hit 150 miles per hour. The Porsche factory's instructions to its drivers? Simple, just finish the race without breaking the car, marketing photographs with a goal, not podium positions. Except something extraordinary happened that night on the Col de Turini. That little German upstart didn't just finish. It placed 5th overall at the Monte Carlo Rally, beating cars with twice the horsepower and decades more racing pedigree. It was the opening salvo in what would become one of the greatest stories in motorsport history. The year 1964 was a turning point for America and the world. President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law in July, fundamentally reshaping American society. The Beatles arrived at JFK Airport in February, greeted by thousands of screaming fans who signaled a cultural revolution. The economy was booming thanks to Kennedy's tax cuts passed that February, which reduced personal and corporate tax rates and helped fuel GDP growth, averaging 6% annually through the decade. Yet beneath this prosperity, fault lines were forming. The Vietnam War was escalating, social unrest simmered in American cities. The comfortable certainties of the 1950s were crumbling. In this climate of change and challenge, 3 automakers represented 3 different philosophies of what a sports car should be. Ferrari, the passionate Italian with racing bred into its DNA, offered hand-built masterpieces that cost as much as a house. Jaguar, the elegant Brit, combined stunning looks with genuine performance at prices mere mortals could almost afford. And then there was Porsche, the methodical German engineer who believed that a proper sports car should be something you could drive to work on Monday, race on Saturday, and drive home on Sunday. The 1964 Porsche 911 wasn't trying to be the fastest, it wasn't trying to be the most beautiful. It was trying to be something that neither Ferrari nor Jaguar had quite managed, utterly dependable. And in 1964, that made all the difference. Section 1. The price of admission. Let's talk money, because price tells you everything about what these manufacturers thought a sports car should be. In 1964, a new Ferrari 250 GTO would set you back $18,000. That's roughly $175,000 in today's money, and that's before we account for the fact that Enzo Ferrari personally approved every buyer. You couldn't just walk into a dealership with a checkbook. You needed pedigree, racing credentials, or friends in very high places. Ferrari built only 36 examples of the GTO between 1962 and 64, with just 3 cars produced to the 1964 specification. These weren't merely automobiles, they were memberships in one of the world's most exclusive clubs. The Jaguar E-Type offered a more democratic path to performance. At $5,300 to $5,500, it cost less than a third of the Ferrari. For your money, you got a 3.8-litre inline-six producing 265 horsepower, wrapped in bodywork that legend claims made Enzo Ferrari himself stop and stare. Malcolm Sayer, the aerodynamicist who designed it, created those curves with a slide rule and wind tunnel data, not just artistic inspiration. The result was a car that could genuinely hit 150 miles per hour and reach 60 from standstill in around 7 seconds, the performance that matched or exceeded many cars costing twice as much. Then came the Porsche 911, priced at $6,500. It sat awkwardly between the affordable Jaguar and the unobtainable Ferrari, yet it offered something neither competitor could match: German engineering precision in every nut and bolt. That 2-litre flat-six displaced 1,991 cubic centimeters and generated 130 horsepower at 6,100 revolutions per minute. On paper, it looked hopelessly outgunned, nearly 100 horsepower down on the Jaguar, more than 170 shy of the Ferrari. But Porsche wasn't playing the horsepower game. While Ferrari obsessed over winning Le Mans and Jaguar chased magazine cover stories, Porsche was building a car that worked every day, in every condition. The 911 weighed just 1,080 kilograms, 2,380 pounds. That air-cooled engine needed no radiator, no coolant hoses to leak, no water pump to fail. The 5-speed manual transmission was overbuilt to Porsche standards. The suspension, all independent, delivered handling that could embarrass cars with twice the power. In September 1964, when production officially began, Porsche built just 235 examples before year's end. Compare that to Jaguar, which had already produced thousands of E-types since 1961. The 911 was the expensive outsider, the German interloper crashing a party dominated by Italian passion and British grace. Section 2. The reality check. Here's what the magazine road tests revealed, and it wasn't pretty for Porsche, at least not at first glance. Motor Magazine tested a Jaguar E-Type 4.2 fixed-head Coupe in October 1964. Top speed, 150 miles per hour, 0 to 60, 7 seconds dead. The quarter mile in 14.9 seconds. They concluded it was the fastest car Motor has tested and praised the absurd ease with which it exceeded 100 miles per hour. The E-Type wasn't just quick, it was aristocratically effortless about it. The 1964 Porsche 911 managed 131 miles per hour, flat out a respectable figure, but 19 miles per hour slower than the Jaguar. 0 to 60 took approximately 8.3 seconds, more than a second behind the E-Type. In straight-line performance, there was no contest. The Jaguar won decisively. As for the Ferrari 250 GTO, it existed in a different realm entirely. With 300 horsepower from its Colombo V12, it could hit 174 miles per hour in race trim. These weren't showroom cars making claims. They were purpose-built racing machines that occasionally wore license plates. The GTO dominated the FIA GT World Championship in 1962, 63, and 64. At the 1962 12 Hours of Sebring, Phil Hill and Olivier Gendebion's GTO finished first in the GT class and second overall. The list of victories stretched like a racing resume: Targa Florio, Silverstone, Nürburgring, Monterrey. Ferrari took first through 6th places at the Monterrey 1,000-kilometer finale in October 1962. So if the Jaguar was faster on the road and the Ferrari was untouchable on the track, what exactly did the 911 have going for it? Section 3. The German secret weapon. The answer lay not in any single specification, but in an engineering philosophy that seems almost quaint today: build it properly the first time. That air-cooled flat-six engine was no accident. Ferdinand Butzi Porsche, grandson of the company founder, worked with a team that understood something fundamental. Complexity is the enemy of reliability. The 911's engine descended directly from the Volkswagen Beetle power plant his grandfather had designed in the 1930s, that famous air-cooled, rear-mounted boxer engine. But where the Beetle had 4 cylinders, the 911 had 6. Where the Beetle made modest power, the 911's Type 901/01 engine achieved 130 PS through sophisticated engineering, single overhead camshafts, a dry sump lubrication system, and aluminum alloy construction throughout. Cooling was managed by that distinctive engine fan and carefully designed shrouding. No coolant to freeze in alpine passes, no radiator to puncture on flying stones, no water pump to fail in the Sahara. This mattered more than most people realized, because Porsche had a plan for the 911 that extended far beyond gentleman drivers on Sunday morning runs. The rear engine layout, inherited from the Beetle, refined through decades of the 356, gave the 911 traction advantages that Ferrari's front-engine GTO couldn't match. Weight over the drive wheels meant the 911 could put its modest power down more effectively than cars with twice the horsepower, spinning their wheels uselessly. This proved particularly crucial in the wet, the cold, the snow, exactly the conditions where races were won and reputations made. That 5-speed manual transmission was another Porsche innovation. In 1964, most sports cars made do with 4 speeds. The 911 gave you 5 ratios to play with, each one precisely spaced to keep that high-revving flat-six in its power band. The gearbox itself was overbuilt to withstand not just street use but genuine competition abuse. Then there was the chassis. The 911's wheelbase measured 87.1 inches, stretched across a platform that combined a steel unitized body with strategic reinforcements. Four-wheel independent suspension, unequal length wishbones up front, semi-trailing arms in back, gave the 911 road holding that made it feel decades ahead of its time. Where the Jaguar E-Type could overwhelm you with its combination of power and weight, the 911 balanced on a knife edge of precision. You could feel every input, sense every change in road surface, predict exactly where the car would go before it went there. But perhaps most importantly, Porsche designed the 911 to be improved. That rear-mounted engine had room to grow. The suspension could be stiffened, modified, tuned. The bodywork, while distinctive, could accept wider wheels, different aerodynamic aids, whatever competition demanded. The 911 wasn't a finished product in September 1964. It was a platform for evolution. Section 4. The Monte Carlo Moment. January 1965, the 34th Monte Carlo Rally. This was the moment everything changed. Huschke von Hanstein, Porsche's racing director and press officer, hatched a plan that seemed almost deliberately modest. Enter a 911 in one of Europe's most prestigious rallies, not to win, but simply to arrive intact at the finish in Monaco. Get some photographs of the new car with Prince Rainier. Prove that this rear-engine German oddity could survive brutal winter conditions. That was success. The car chosen was chassis number 300055, painted ruby red, pulled straight from the production line. Herbert Linge, a 36-year-old Porsche veteran who'd been with the company since the early 1950s, got the driver's seat. Peter Falk, a Porsche engineer and test driver, rode as navigator. Together they'd proven themselves in everything from the Carrera Panamericana to the Targa Florio. The car itself received minimal modifications for competition. Weber carburetors replaced the standard Solex units, bumping power to approximately 150 horsepower. Slightly higher compression helped. Polished intake ports improved breathing. A rollover bar went in. Additional lights mounted up front and on the roof. But the 911 remained fundamentally stock 1,080 kilograms, 5-speed manual, air-cooled engine. Von Hanstein's instructions were clear. It's okay if you finish last. Just survive. Just arrive. Linge and Falk had other ideas. They departed from Bad Homburg, north of Frankfurt, in conditions that would have kept sensible people indoors. Snow blanketed Europe from the Eifel Mountains southward to the Alps. Linge later recalled, "Everything was covered with snow, but since I had done all the winter tire tests on the 356 vehicles, it didn't matter. That air-cooled engine, that rear weight bias, that Germanic preparation, all of it clicked into place." By the time they reached Monaco, Linge and Falk sat 8th overall. Not bad for a car supposedly just along for the marketing photos. But the real test came next. The night of the long knives at the infamous Col de Turini. This was where rallies were won and lost, where the accumulated stress of days of driving compressed into a few brutal hours of mountain passes in darkness, ice, and exhaustion. The 911 clawed its way up those frozen switchbacks, that flat six howling its distinctive mechanical song, Linge working the 5-speed transmission like a musician playing an instrument. When the times were counted and the placings calculated, the ruby red Porsche sat 5th overall, 5th, against purpose-built rally cars from manufacturers with decades of experience. That 5th place finish announced something the automotive world hadn't quite grasped. This German newcomer wasn't playing by the established rules. While Ferrari built 36 masterpieces and Jaguar chased top-speed bragging rights, Porsche had created something that actually worked when conditions turned nasty. Section 5. The long game. That Monte Carlo result wasn't luck, it was proof of concept for a business model that would eventually dominate sports car racing. 3 years after that surprising 5th place, Vic Elford and David Stone piloted a 911T to overall victory at the 1968 Monte Carlo Rally. They started from Warsaw in a car weighing less than 1,000 kilograms, powered by a 170 horsepower version of that same basic flat six. The final stage came down to Elford versus French driver Gérard Larousse in a Renault Alpine. Larousse, led by 14 seconds entering the decisive Col de Turini, climbed 3 brutal runs up that infamous pass in the frozen maritime Alps. The story of those 17 minutes and 27 seconds is rallying legend. Elford, knowing he had nothing to lose, drove with calculated aggression. Larousse fought back but hit a patch of snow deliberately shoveled onto the road by fans, slammed into a wall, and that was that. Porsche's first overall Monte Carlo victory. The 911 had proven itself not just capable but championship-winning. Then came 1969, another Monte Carlo victory, 1970, a third straight win, an unprecedented hat-trick that established the 911 as a genuine rally weapon. While other manufacturers struggled with reliability in extreme conditions, the air-cooled Porsche just kept running. But rallying was merely the beginning. That platform proved adaptable to every form of motorsport imaginable: track racing, endurance competition, hill climbs. The 911 showed up everywhere, often driven by privateers who couldn't afford factory support but trusted Porsche's reputation for building cars that didn't break. The Jaguar E-Type, for all its speed and beauty, never achieved similar competition success. It raced. Certainly lightweight versions competed at Le Mans and other circuits. Graham Hill won races in E-Types in 1961. But Jaguar struggled to keep pace with Ferrari's GTOs on faster international circuits, and the company never fully committed to a works racing program that could have changed that equation. Ferrari's GTO gradually became obsolete by 1965, replaced by mid-engine designs like the 250 LM. Those cars were faster, more advanced, and less reliable. The 911, meanwhile, just kept evolving. Bigger engines, wider tires, better aerodynamics. Each generation built on lessons learned from the previous one, creating an unbroken chain of development that continues today. Section 6. The verdict of time. Here's what the 1964 competitors are worth today, and it tells you everything about how history judged this contest. A well-preserved 1964 Ferrari 250 GTO recently sold for over $70 million at auction. Yes, $70 million. They are consistently the most valuable cars in the world, with good examples never dropping below $40 million. The GTO's rarity, racing pedigree, and sheer beauty created a market where only billionaires need apply. A pristine 1964 Jaguar E-Type 3.8 Series 1, particularly one with the desirable flat floor and external bonnet latches, commands $200,000 to $500,000. That's serious money for a classic, reflecting the E-Type's status as one of the most beautiful cars ever made. And the 1964 911? Expect to pay $250,000 minimum for a good example, with exceptional cars pushing $400,000 or more. But here's the thing. There are approximately 150,000 early 911s still on the road today, according to Porsche's estimates from 2014. They're being driven, maintained, modified, raced. They're living machines, not museum pieces. That difference matters. You can't drive a $70 million GTO in anger anymore. The financial risk is too enormous, the car's too precious. E-Types sit in climate-controlled garages, emerging for occasional concours events, but 911s? Walk into any track day from California to the Nürburgring, and you'll see them. Modern GT3 RS models battling the latest Ferrari challenge cars, classic long hoods running historic races, heavily modified outlaw 911s with turbos and wide fenders mixing it up in time attack events. The 911 beat Ferrari and Jaguar by refusing to play their game. Ferrari built 36 perfect GTOs and stopped. Jaguar made the E-Type beautiful and moved on. Porsche built the 911 as a platform for continuous improvement. And here we are, 60 years later, with the latest 992 GT3 RS lapping the Nürburgring faster than purpose-built race cars from the 2000s. So did the 1964 Porsche 911 really beat Ferrari and Jaguar? On paper in '64? Absolutely not. It was slower than the Jaguar, less powerful than the Ferrari, and more expensive than it probably should have been for what the specifications suggested. But ask a different question. Which car proved the better long-term investment in engineering philosophy? Which manufacturer's 1964 sports car influenced the next 60 years of automotive development? Which car can you still campaign in competition today without worrying about destroying an irreplaceable artifact? The answer changes. The air-cooled 911 evolved into the 911 Carrera RS of 1973, the turbocharged monsters of the 930s and 935s, the water-cooled 996 series that horrified purists and sold like crazy anyway. Each generation preserved that essential 911 character while incorporating everything Porsche learned from racing, from customer feedback, from pushing the boundaries of what a sports car could be. Ferrari continued making spectacular machines, each more exotic than the last. Jaguar built other beautiful cars. But neither created anything with the 911's combination of usability, reliability, and continuous development. That ruby red Porsche that surprised everyone at Monte Carlo in 1965 started something that hasn't stopped. We'd love to hear your memories of these cars. Did you see a 911 or E-Type at a show? Did your father or uncle have one? What's your favorite story about these legendary machines? Drop your comments below and share your experiences with fellow enthusiasts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into 1960s sports car history, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. We've got more stories about the cars that changed motorsport waiting for you. And smash that like button if you learned something new today. It helps us bring you more thoroughly researched automotive history. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep the rubber on the road and the engine running. These cars were meant to be driven,